This is part 2 of our grease pencil tutorial. And if you recall, I created these shapes or fills and these strokes or lines in grease pencil on 2 different layers, the lines layer and the fills layer. And I have little eyeballs that I can turn on and off those individual layers so I can sort of see those. Keep in mind there are also materials, and those materials also have eyeballs that we can turn on and off to be able to see or not see the individual strokes um, within the materials area. So there's ways we can adjust the display of those 2 different layers by material or by layer by adjusting those eyeballs. Remember, we can also lock layers by hitting the lock icon, which prevents editing to those particular layers. All right, one of the things that happened when I drew these lines is that they didn't appear very opaque. And that's because when I was in the draw mode, the strength value was less than 1, which meant as I drew a new stroke, it appeared translucent. And you might think, well, how do I adjust that for the lines that I've already drawn? Well, as we discovered in the first video, in the sculpt mode, we have the ability not only to adjust the sculpting for individual strokes or fills by adjusting the position, we also can adjust the thickness and the strength. And we can grab, which is what we were initially doing, was grabbing individual strokes and sort of moving those around or pushing individual stroke pieces. By pushing like this, we can push on the strokes. What we can do is adjust the strength value. So in order to adjust the strength value, we have the F key or Frank, F for Frank. If I push F, it's going to adjust the size of my cursor. So this is the radius of my tool that I'm going to use. So I want a relatively big radius here. And so for strength value, you can have the strength all the way up. And now I can paint a heavier strength on these lines, and that's going to make them more opaque. Now we see all these little tiny white lines. Those are a display setting up here for overlays. So if I turn the overlays off, I can hide that so I don't have to see those. But anyway, I can paint the strength of those strokes on that particular element there by using the sculpt mode and painting the strengths on there. I can also adjust the thickness. So if I can paint the thickness on there, I can adjust the thickness for the individual lines. Now I can do it on a very small scale like that, or I can hit the F key again, increase my radius size, and then as I'm painting, notice I can adjust the thickness of those lines. Okay, so that's kind of a cool feature in the sculpt mode, is to be able to adjust the strength and the thickness values. We can also smooth those out. So again, I'm going to do the F key. And as I smooth, notice I can smooth out the results of those things I was just doing. Okay, so I can make those lines a little more smooth and a little less dramatic in their changes. What else do we have? We have randomize. Again, increasing my brush size. Um, Randomizing is going to randomize the strokes, okay? And that's pretty cool. Notice it's also doing the fills, so we want to be careful with that. I'd probably want to have my fill layer locked. So if I go into the solid fill layer and lock that, now I can't adjust the fill. I'm only adjusting the strokes with that randomize. Okay, we saw we could do the push tool by pushing and pulling on those. We also have the grab tool, which lets us grab as well. We have a swirl tool. Again, I'm going to increase my radius and I can swirl or adjust those lines. Okay, so that's pretty funky. There's a little flower tool here. Again, I'll increase my radius and I can adjust the flower tool here and do some weird things. And then there's also a clone tool, which lets me clone or copy individual lines. I also have the ability to annotate or make adjustments in that way. So all of those settings are available under the sculpt mode. I'm going to undo a bunch of those. So I wanted to show you just the power that we have within the sculpt mode there of being able to adjust the individual line using the F key as the size of our brush And notice I'm adjusting this path here again with the solid fill locked. I can adjust my brush and try to get my lines to match my fill area. F for the radius. And I can also adjust the radius up here at the top of the screen. Okay, and you can see that I can get my strokes to match my line work, I mean my fill area very easily by adjusting those individual settings. So the sculpt mode is very powerful, not only in adjusting the shape and the position of the line, but also the strength and the thickness of the individual line. So again, if I stay with a high radius here, I can increase or decrease the thickness of my line. So if I go to a lower strength, I'm sorry, if I go in a negative value here, I can make my lines go thinner. So here I've set my strength is still pretty high, but I'm going in a negative direction, and I can adjust those lines back down to a thinner scale.